This resource explores brainstorming. The idea of brainstorming is described as our general techniques. We then look at various methods to ensure a good flow of ideas: vertical thinking, lateral thinking, futuring, analogy, and cross-fertilization. Each method is described, and examples are given for each. Suppose you are working in a group that is presented with some task or problem to solve, and told to come up with ideas about how to complete your work. Brainstorming is a technique for getting as many ideas as possible onto paper. Brainstorming is free association, which means no idea should be omitted, no matter how crazy it may seem. The purpose of brainstorming is just to come up with ideas. You evaluate and select your best option later. But what happens? At first, ideas are coming fast and furious. People are shouting out ideas, and whoever has to write them down has a hard time getting everything down. Then after a couple of minutes, the ideas stop coming. The brainstorm becomes a brain drizzle. However, there are still good options that you haven't found yet. You need to keep the ideas coming. What you need is some way to trick your brain to keep the flow of ideas moving. It is important to remember that brainstorming is all about getting options. You should not judge ideas as they are produced. No matter how ridiculous the idea may seem, you should write it down. Don't worry if an idea costs too much or is not feasible. Write it down. You want to come up with as many possible solutions as you can. One way to keep the flow of ideas moving is to use vertical thinking. Vertical thinking builds on previous suggestions, or piggybacks ideas. Regarded as the creator of brainstorming, creative theorist Alex Osborn created a checklist of questions to aid vertical thinking in 1953. Could the idea be adapted to another situation? Or could it be modified by changing the material, color, or shape? Could the idea be magnified to a larger size? Or minimized smaller, maybe take out some features? Or could the idea be substituted? Or could you rearrange parts, maybe interchange parts, reverse roles, or switch cause and effect? Or could you combine ideas, maybe take parts from different ideas and combine them to make a whole new possibility? For example, suppose you had to write a screenplay. Some of the ideas you came up with were a pirate movie, or a movie set in deep space, or a movie about a woman who overcomes some obstacle, like a life-threatening illness. You could adapt the pirate movie to make it be about Western bandits rather than pirates. Or the woman facing a life-threatening illness could be magnified to a movie focusing on some epidemic that threatens all the lives in the world. Or your pirate movie could be about pirates trying to smuggle the cure for the illness. Or you could have a role reversal, where the pirate is the one in distress and the female lead has to save them. Or you could combine all the ideas and have a movie about a female lead trying to escape from some space pirates. Physician and consultant Edward de Bono created the ideas of lateral thinking to avoid mental block. The idea of lateral thinking is to work around the block, rather than try to bludgeon your way through the block. This lateral thinking can be achieved in two ways: random stimulation or other people's views. In random stimulation, a random seed word is used to jump-start a stalled-out brain. For example, suppose you are trying to come up with a theme for a party. You immediately come up with ideas like luau and 70s disco party, and a few others. But after a few minutes, the ideas start to dwindle. It's time to try a random stimulus to reboot your brain. So the moderator says, elephant. Hearing the word elephant, you immediately think trunk. A trunk is a form of luggage, and you use luggage when you travel. This makes you think about the time you went to New Orleans. And why did you go to New Orleans? To go to Mardi Gras. Hey, Mardi Gras would be a wonderful party theme. The other form of lateral thinking is to see from other people's views. This technique is particularly helpful when the problem at hand features the feelings and thoughts of other people. Other people's views help you consider other complications than the obvious. For example, a parent may wonder why a school district did not cancel classes when there was a bad storm forecast. If the parent considers the view of the district superintendent, they would realize that the district may have already used their allotted snow days, and any additional school days lost would cut into vacation time, or that the district, which operates on a shoestring budget, needs to have school to receive their federal funding, or that the storm was not supposed to become truly bad until after school let out, and simply canceling after-school activities would be sufficient. So you have some problem to solve. Wouldn't it be nice if it were already solved? That is the basic idea behind futuring. Once you have clearly defined the problem, you imagine a world where the problem is already solved. Annoying little details like the technology required does not exist is happily ignored. The problem has been solved. What are the benefits of having solved your problem? Now we worry about the how did we get to the solution state? What changes were necessary to achieve this solution? Maybe some new tech had to be invented. Maybe you just had to make lifestyle changes to make the solution possible. One nice feature of futuring is you get to use your imagination. You can think of any potential solution, no matter how seemingly infeasible it may be. By thinking from the solution backwards, you refocus your mind. This allows a whole new set of possible solutions. For example, suppose you were tasked with finding a solution for rush hour gridlock in a major city. One possible way you could attack this problem is through futuring. First, you must clearly define the problem as, how do we prevent the roadways from being clogged, increasing the time it takes to commute home from work? Now, you consider a world where there are no traffic jams. How could this happen? Then you remember a favorite cartoon from your youth, the Jetsons with their flying cars. If only we could have flying cars, then the two-dimensional problem of gridlock will effectively be solved, because there is nearly infinite space above the roadways. Now the problem shifts to having to design the flying car, rather than dealing with gridlock. A powerful brainstorming technique for problem solving is to consider analogies. Maybe your specific problem has never been solved before, but there may be an analogous situation that has been solved previously. First, you must make sure that you have properly defined your problem. Then you find an analogy for your situation. Consider the solution for the analogy. Then you transfer that solution to your specific situation, making any necessary adjustments. An example should help clarify this solution by analogy method. When NASA was first designing the shuttle for manned spaceflight, they had a quandary. How could they find a material that would survive the heat caused by re-entry into the atmosphere? The simple answer was, they couldn't. No material exists that can survive that amount of heat. So the scientists had to redefine the problem to state, how can we protect the astronauts on re-entry? Now, a solution was possible, because there were objects that survive re-entry, meteors. The scientists realized that the meteors are covered by a substance that burns off during entry into Earth's atmosphere, but leaves the core of the meteor intact. This provided the basis for protecting the astronauts on re-entry. The capsule is covered by a substance that vaporizes when exposed to the heat and friction of re-entry. This keeps the interior of the capsule at a tolerable level and protects the astronauts. Cross-fertilization considers two seemingly unrelated disciplines or professions. What could they possibly learn from each other? For example, What could a pastor learn from a maitre d'? Or what could a banker learn from a gardener? Let's look at one diverse pairing, a college professor and a beautician. On the surface, these two professions have nothing in common. But if you look deeper, you realize that there are topics that each could learn from the other. Beauticians often keep a stream of conversation with their clients, so the professor could learn to relate to their students better and become better listeners. Or the professor could also learn tips about managing small groups or businesses. The beautician could learn the importance of staying current with trends, and perhaps learn new techniques for dyeing hair using new chemicals. When faced with some problem, you want to have a plethora of potential solutions. Brainstorming is a technique that helps you compose a list of potential solutions. It is especially effective when you are working in a group and have other people you can bounce ideas off. An important thing to remember about brainstorming is that it is a positive activity. No negative ideas allowed. You want to keep the flow of ideas moving and worry about evaluating and choosing your best option later. At some point, the rate of coming up with new solutions will slow. You must find a way to redirect and refocus your brain to continue seeking potential solutions. There are many ways to do this. Vertical thinking is where you piggyback ideas off solutions you already came up with. Lateral thinking thinks around the problem, either by random stimulation or by considering the problem from someone else's viewpoint. In futuring, you have the position that the problem has already been solved, and what situations had to change to make the solution possible. Analogy looks for a solution to a similar problem, and then makes needed adjustments. Cross-fertilization determines what improvements can be made by considering two distinct subject matters. No matter how you do it, work to keep your brain storm from becoming a brain drizzle.